So between 2019 and 2023, the number of NGOs registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission (CAC) skyrocketed from 17,000 to 191,000. That's an increase of over 1,000%. That means hundreds of new NGOs are entering the field each day. In fact, on this channel, my most watched video or engaged video is how to register, an NGO, and then questions in regards to NGOs as well. But most of these NGOs are underprepared for the legal responsibilities that come with operating an NGO in Nigeria. Another source also suggests that in earlier years, Nigeria had some 46,000 NGOs already registered, right? According to the NNGO, they now have more than 3,900 member NGOs in their network. While reliable public data on funding, is hard to come by, it's well documented that most Nigerian NGOs rely heavily, on foreign and international donors rather than domestic sources. Why do these numbers matter? Like, why do they matter? Well, where you have, rapid growth and then there is a low regulatory compliance, it will definitely equal to, a death in NGOs credibility. And once there's a death in their credibility, they cannot get access to funding, they cannot continue to sustain that NGO. That is why I'm doing this video, because in this video I'll share, the must know legal compliance rules that every NGO in Nigeria should follow. So by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what you need to watch out for, how to stay safe as an NGO, and how to keep your NGO flourishing legally and reputationally. So let's just get right into the video. And if you're just seeing my face for the first time, my name is Joy and I'm a legal practitioner based in Nigeria, and I've been practicing law for over a decade. And in this video, we share, tips on compliance, corporate governance, for businesses and NGOs. I also share, a little tips on, family law, and then for young lawyers as well. So if you're a young professional, you want to stay on these videos. Any of this resonates with you, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and put on your notification bell. So each time I post a legal tip, you get notified. Don't forget to share this video with somebody who just might need it. So let's just get right into the video. So the first thing is, we're talking about compliance 101 and what every NGO in Nigeria must know. So the first thing is you have to do a reality check. You see, now the NGO space in Nigeria is seriously booming, right? And that boom, comes with a lot of legal landmines. That's why, compliance is no longer optional. Compliance is a part and parcel, of the NGO, and it's also foundational. It starts from the beginning. Terms, right? The reason why compliance is mandatory for the NGO. Now, without proper legal registration and compliance, your NGO can be challenged, or it can be struck out, or you will not get access to funding, because donors, whether the donor is local or international, they almost always condition, giving grants on clear, legal compliance or financial compliance, right? They want to be sure that the NGO is sticking to, or the NGO is in proper compliance before even they release any money at all. So any misstep, can tarnish, the organization forever. And, compliance ensures that, you open bank accounts, you start running properly, you get SCUMLs, you can enter into contracts, you can hire staff, you can rent assets, you can repatriate funds, in the sense that, if you get funding, from a foreign donor, at least you can repatriate it, back to Nigeria. So once you are in compliance, all those things will not be a problem any longer. And then, your community and your partners and regulators, deserve the assurance that you operate ethically and you operate legally. You owe it to them that, the NGO is properly run down, So now we're just going to break down, the roadmap of compliance for NGO. And the first thing I always say, in any video I'm going to be doing about compliance, or the videos I've done in the past, is that structuring the foundation is very, very important. How you structure your NGO is very important. So in Nigeria, NGOs are usually structured as incorporated trustees. That's under the Companies and Allied Matters Act. And, they are registered in CAC as incorporated trustee. Now, there is a likelihood that your incorporated trustee should be registered as a limited by guarantee, because it is similar to an incorporated trustee. It is similar to an NGO that's a limited by guarantee. And I've done videos, on this channel. You can go and check it out on the difference between a limited by guarantee and, a not-for-profit company. They are similar. The only difference, in with the limited by guarantee is that they are allowed to do business, while NGOs, they are not allowed to do business. But the money or the profit that the limited by guarantee makes is they are not allowed to share it, they are supposed to put it back into, the limited by guarantee that is like an NGO, to further the cause of that limited by guarantee. So the NGO, must have a proper constitution. Let your constitution reflect charitable, objects. Let it, let it be membership rules. Let there also be, like a dissolution clause, like, if it doesn't succeed at the end of the day, if you cannot continue with the NGO, should we dissolve the NGO, or should we just gather the funds that we already have and give it to another NGO with similar clause? Now the CAC will look at your object and make sure that, it is not for profit, it is for charitable purposes, and it is public interest oriented. That is very important. So the foundation is very critical, to compliance. So be very careful when you're doing your registration, especially if you're doing it by yourself, because I did, like a DIY of how you can register your NGO by yourself. I'm going to put a link in the description so that you can just get it. It's just cost only, just 5,000 naira, but it's a step-by-step way on how you can register your NGO. You want to go and get it. Now, do not fall for the trap of copy and paste constitution from ChatGPT, from ChatGPT or from the internet. Make sure you look at it very well. Make sure you tailor it to what exactly your vision is, because it might cause internal disputes or problems, and then, CAC might not even accept it in the first place. You want to make sure that there's proper reporting, there's proper audit and financial, compliance. So NGOs should have proper accounting books, especially if you're just starting. You want to start early. Make sure you have everything written or have everything documented down. Ordinarily in that NGO, you should have your treasurer or you should have a secretary who is responsible for those kind of things. That's why they say the secretary has the common seal. You want to have invoices, you want to have your own receipts as well. You want to make sure that you have proper accounting, because you're going to need it, if you want to apply for funding. You need to have, annual financial statements, that should be done by a qualified auditor. Be very critical about these things. Don't even try to do it yourself. Have an auditor help you do it. It's not that expensive, honestly speaking, because sometimes the donors will require that, you have your audited financials, as a condition for giving you a grant. Some NGOs mistakenly think that, they can escape it, because it's a small NGO, that it's just a small thing. Now it's not something that should be that serious. Even if it's a small NGO, have at least, periodic internal reviews. Another thing you need to have in mind is regulatory and statutory filings, and this is something I've been hammering on this channel, and I've been saying it, that sometimes it can even stop you from getting visas. So you want to keep track of when you should be filing annual returns. Don't wait until it's time for penalty, by tax, because it's an NGO, you don't make profit, so most definitely you may not be taxed. Right? So you want to keep track and be sure that, after every year, you are filing your annual returns, or you are filing annual returns, to ensure that, you don't fall into penalty, or they don't even cancel your NGO altogether. So complying, also with labor laws, because you will still need to hire some people. You cannot run the NGO by yourself. So you will definitely need people to hire. You don't know this, right? They use NGOs to launder money. That is why you need to get your SCUML certificate as an NGO, because they want to be sure that you're not going to be using this NGO to launder money. So those are the things that, you need to put in place, because if you're receiving foreign funds, you need to make sure that, the anti-money laundering, that's the AML, counterterrorism financing obligations, are well adhered to, and you are applying it in your NGO. Another issue again is data protection and privacy laws, right? They must be respected, whether you like it or not. If you're going to get a certain number of data from people, you want to be sure that you are in compliance with that data. You are ensuring that you are using that data for what you say you want to use it for. Foreign funding and repatriation issues. If you're going to be getting foreign funding and you need to move that money to Nigeria, because of course they're going to be sending it to you to Nigeria, and it is hard currency, so there are a lot of regulations, that are involved. There are exchange controls, central bank guidelines, donor repatriation rules that you must strictly adhere to. Sixth one is you need to comply with emerging regulations, because just like I said, the law keeps evolving. New regulations are coming out. There have been legislative efforts to pass, like an NGO regulatory commission bill to regulate and coordinate and monitor NGOs. So once if that bill is passed, right, NGOs could be required to register with a central NGO regulatory agency and re-register periodically with penalties, for compliance. So if you don't comply, definitely, there will be penalties. So NGO must stay at alert to evolving regulatory frameworks. Don't just assume that this is how it has been done. This is how it will be forever be done. A lot of things are changing. Government is changing a lot of things. So you want to stay on top of it, right? So there are common pitfalls that you need to avoid, you need to stay clear of, which is poor record keeping. Make sure that you keep proper records, ignoring donor rules, late statutory filings, operating outside your objects. And this one is very common. Like, people start thinking this is what they want to do, and it can change really. But the goal is, do not go outside. Make sure that whatever you're doing is for charitable purposes, right? Make sure that your constitution has like a general clause that can take whatever you want to do. Be careful about data mismanagement and information leaks. Be careful of those pitfalls. They might look small, right? Late statutory filings, they might look small, but it can affect you in the long run. So how do you protect yourself? How do you guide yourself? The first thing you need to do is establish strong internal policies. Make sure that you have policies on ground. And I don't care, like, if it's a small NGO, start early. Make sure that you have all these guidelines set. You have HR, employment rules. You're following all these things. Number two is train your staff on compliance obligations, right? Make sure that you have staff that is gonna be helping you keep track of what you're supposed to be filing and when you're supposed to be filing it, and also to be keeping records of these things. Very important. And then you also need to get a competent auditor or a compliance advisor. Like, at least get legal help. If you cannot get legal help, make sure that your secretary or somebody who is on top of it is always there. Don't make it be like an afterthought. And I've shared this on this channel. I say compliance is no longer an afterthought. It's the foundation of anything you want to do, whether it's an NGO or it's a business. Number four, you need to conduct internal compliance reviews annually or biannually, so that you can keep track. You want to also be abreast, be on top of regulatory changes as it involves NGO or not for profit, or data protection, or even labor laws, because those things are things that you'll be involved with. So I did a compliance checklist so that every NGO can maintain and tick off that you can keep. So I'm going to put the link in the description, and it is completely free. The link will be in the description of this video. So it's going to be like a compliance compass for any NGO. So you can just be ticking your boxes, right? I had a friend who needed to get a donor, or who needed funding from abroad or internationally, but he called me and he was like, I don't know what to do. They are saying that my status is inactive on the CAC portal. There are certain things I haven't done, blah blah blah. Don't wait. You never know when an opportunity might come, and then you need it and you have to start rushing. And then, do you know that they gave that funding to another person, even though he was qualified, but because he couldn't get his status to be active, or he couldn't get these things done on time. So you want to keep be on top of these things, so that you can have a proper foundation. So now you have a solid foundation, the why, the what, and a roadmap for NGO compliance. But knowledge is worthless until action follows. So you want to make sure that you are following up with these things. So the first step you need to do, or the step you need to take after watching this video, is make sure you download the NGO checklist in the description, and make sure you do a self audit using the checklist, and check for the gaps in your organization. If you're just starting or you're already there, look at it. Make sure you bring in a legal or compliance expert, even if it's just for part-time. Before any problem will arise, let them see it and be sure. Make sure to share this video with anybody who has an NGO. So operating an NGO, I like to believe personally, right, is a calling. But to sustain your calling, you must embrace compliance, not as a burden, but as a shield. So get your legal house in order, because donors, and beneficiaries and trustees and regulators will respect you for it. So I hope this video was helpful. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this video to who might be needing it. Thank you guys for watching.